Oh, okay. It's not.
Okay. There we are, on the screen. You and me, Lovey. Carry this meeting. I have one of those on my face.
What,
I had one on my face
Did
as
you?
well. Yeah, mine was a swamp.
squamous cell?
Yeah, that's different.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
different.
it's
That's
different.
earlier stage, or what is that?
It's just a different tissue.
Oh,
And it's a little worse than basal cell.
is that right?
And the most benign of all is this guy.
Oh, yeah,
See how dry and woody looking?
yeah. that.
That's called a subarachnoid keratosis.
Okay. Wow.
And that you just liquid nitrogen and pop it off. Yeah. Which she did. I went to the doctor yesterday for my 1 month follow-up.
Uh-huh.
And God, they're so busy. Honest to God,
Really?
that dermatology clinic at Stanford,
Uh-huh.
the people coming out of there with, like bald men with, bandages here.
Yeah.
It's like, she was, her name was Kibby, Dr. Kibby, and she was booked at 110% that day. I had a 15-minute appointment, and I think I got maybe 6 minutes or 7 minutes. They just. So it'd be interesting to see what happens with this thing that Biden just signed with executive order, creating sort of a Peace Corps for sustainability for the climate change and sustainability. Yeah, he couldn't get it past the Senate or he couldn't get it past Congress. So he did it by executive order, and he's establishing, I forget what they call it, but it's like, they had one in the, Johnson had one where Vista volunteers, that kind of stuff.
Technical volunteer.
Yeah, yeah. Well, this is going to be one where they take kids from 18 or young people from 18 to 30 or 35 can join it. And they give them education. They train them in certain things. Maybe they'll train them to how to install heat pumps or something. But, it's a educational type thing, and they get paid. And they can write grants, and in towns, cities, municipalities, organizations can write grants to get money. It's part of his big, whatever his big bill was. Yes, exactly. Yeah, exactly. So I don't know, it's kind of exciting in a way that, yeah, that there's something, that's interesting. I don't know, but I didn't read deep into it. It was a big long article. Yeah, but who's, hopefully there's not going to be a new group or thing that hopefully they'll, not, they'll keep the money, giving the money out, not using it to pay more bureaucrats. I don't know. It just happened yesterday. So it's, I mean, he worked and worked and worked to get it past Congress, but, he couldn't get the votes. So he just decided to do it by executive order. which it's kind of like a Vista Volunteers, but for climate change and sustainability. It's part of that Inflation Reduction Act. And it's focused on young people to train them and give them money for education and training in various things that will hopefully help the climate. Whatever. Somebody left a doodad here. It lives here. I got a drawer full of them.
I don't know, we seem to go through them like water.
But it's the kind of thing where we might consider writing a grant or something.
We, the town,
Yeah, or we the committee. Yeah, we the town. I mean, of course, but you know,
I'd like to find getting somebody who can work.
mhm.
Oh, Brandy has left our
I know. I just heard yesterday. You know where she went?
Woodside.
Woodside.
Are you serious? You work full time?
She's gonna, I invited her to join us so that we could,
Yeah.
plan, but I'm not. Hey,
Okay. I mean, she's been the center of sustainability for what, 10, 15 years? now?
What you gonna be doing at Woodside? Because Woodside's not too big on sustainability.
Well, I guess maybe they'll get bigger now.
I doubt it, you know, the people there are not interested.
Somebody was selling a Lomi composter on the web the other day.
I know.
Testing, testing. We're live, by the way. Live.
Yes, now.
Yeah, well, I mean, we've been live.
Okay,
But-
I gotta be careful.
So, yeah, we just, but nobody's joined us yet, so, and the time of the meeting is not. No foul yet.
Well, are we recording?
We are recording. We've said anything too controversial?
We're supposed to have a, what do you call it, Pineapple Express early Monday morning.
Really?
Rain,
Mhm.
rain,
Mhm.
and a Pineapple Express, as in it could be multiple days of rain?
I don't know, it's
Uh-oh.
supposed to be a big one.
I better get
It's gonna hit the
tarp up.
northwest.
a tarp
and then
up on
come
my,
down, so it's not gonna
Really?
hit us directly. We'll get the,
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
already.
no, no, I've gotta get a tarp on my wall that's open.
Yeah, I have projects and things lying about, and I thought I had a whole month.
What day is this again?
Monday morning, like 3 a.m. or 1 a.m. or something like that. So spend the weekend putting things under wraps.
Hi. Hello. Mhm. We have a quorum. Don't have, it's not quite time. 2 minutes. We're on the air though. Our meeting is being broadcast live. There's nobody connected to it. So don't worry in that regard, but it'll be on YouTube. It will be.
Rebecca, do you know if you have a
Aye.
policy about dogs in this room?
Each in the car.
Not in the car, but a puppy at home?
Oh, no,
Maybe your
it's gonna
answer's
keep
up there on the wall. Look at
your
the wall hanging.
Begging for it.
Or is that a horse?
That's obviously a puppy.
That's a dog.
Totally a puppy.
Okay.
I think it's a horse.
Could be a dog. We interpreted it. to
Okay,
be
well,
a
horse-
dog. Yeah, if you could bring a horse.
Right.
there.
It's a puppy.
Mutt.
And yeah,
No, we're gonna do that. If he can get his act together and be a little more kind to our other dog.
oh no. How old is he then?
He's 5 months and our other dog is 9. He's a dignified baby and deserves to be treated as such.
Is he chewing up the shoes and peeing all over the place?
We just got him, so we're not
Oh.
letting him roam around too much.
It is 7. It is 7, so let's get going. So we'll call the meeting to order because we do have a quorum, and we'll take the roll call. And Loverine Taylor,
Here,
Anita Wotus, Rebecca Flynn,
here.
Ronnie Krasinski here, Jay Soleil,
Here.
Scott Elrod, I'm here, and Leslie is not with us tonight. She's on a trip down to San Luis Obispo. But we do have a quorum. So let's just launch into it. Brandy may join us, we'll see. Let's see, oral communication. So anything not on the agenda. Does anybody have a topic that they'd like to just speak to that's not on our agenda?
Guess, could you maybe explain Brandy's
Mm.
status? You said she might join us.
Yeah, I guess Brandy's status is not on the agenda. Brandy was going to join us, but
Oh,
her father, I think, was in town, and so maybe she couldn't join us. But she has decided to leave the town of Portola Valley, and she's, as I understand it, she's joining the town of Woodside staff. So that leaves a pretty big gap in our connection to the town government, the town staff.
Is it a position you think they'll refill?
I had a phone call with Jeff Alps, who's now the mayor, town council member mayor. Jeff was going to join us tonight, but he had a conflict that came up. So he will start playing a more active role with our committee, attending more of our meetings. They are going to replace Brandy. I think the exact complement of what that person is doing is, unclear. I mean, Brandy was hired really as a sustainability person, and then she got more and more responsibilities, and so her ability to focus on sustainability was still there, but it was not as complete as initially. I don't know what the plan is for the new person. I suspect they'll hire somebody who can focus on sustainability, but until they do, we're going to have we're going to be more on our own, I think, as a committee than we were previously. That's my guess.
Do we have like a interim staff liaison or something like that?
So Jeff was going to ask about that. I think Jeff may be that person for us. A staff liaison? Yeah, Jeff was going to inquire, but I think everybody is just slammed with the fact that we've lost the town manager, the assistant town manager, the town attorney,
Director,
Brandy. I mean, there's almost,
Planning director. the assistant,
and Laura Russell has left. So it's almost like a complete turnover. So, and I think realistically, sustainability is not the top of the agenda for all those people. So we're going to have to keep doing what we can do as a group with some connection. I mean, we can rely on Jeff, I think, to ask critical questions. We can engage the town attorney. We did engage the interim town attorney about um, the issue with the Emporia smart plugs and the fact that those have had a recall. So we did engage her and got some feedback. We did. So
What did she say?
we'll get,
We'll get there.
oh no, well, that's not right. So I'll talk about that now. Well, the feedback basically was, yeah, you're doing the right thing to send it out on PV Forum. That's probably the broadest way to distribute the information. Did you happen to collect the names of the people who took one? No, we did not. The only thing she said that was perhaps a little bit of a concern was that, or maybe it is a concern, was that in the future, it'd be better if we could get these things donated by companies, because then if the town didn't buy them, the town would not be on the hook in the same, potentially on the hook in the same way with regard to liability. So
What do they do? Start fires or something?
they could shock somebody. Yeah, potentially. So, but she felt what we were doing was the reasonable thing. And so anyway, just the point being that, yeah, there's somebody there we can engage and talk to. But if we wanted to launch a whole new thing like cool roofs, cool walls, there's no place to go in the town right now. And I would say with respect to the climate action plan, Jeff Alv. So I emphasized, since Brandy's not, well, let's do this as sort of updates. We're doing the updates. No, we need to, if we do things in order, we'll do introductions, which we do not have. We'll do presentation and announcements, which we do not have, and we'll approve the minutes. So let's approve the minutes, and then I'll just continue with the Brandy piece of the meeting, and I can speak to what I understand about that.
I would add also though, for oral communications, that's not on the agenda. I've actually been attending a whole bunch of lectures and talks about sustainability and green building and building science. And they've been very interesting. Some of them are done through PG&E and some have been done through 3C REN, which stands for 3 county, I forget, something energy, something. And it's the 3 counties down above LA. So Santa Barbara, that area. And they've been putting on some amazing talks. I don't know, I guess with 3 counties, huge counties, they have a budget to be able to get some of the top leaders in building science to come and speak about heat pumps, about building science, about energy efficiency and whatever. So they've been very impressive. And I had sent a link to the town, to the PV forum about it, because they're open, they're free
That'd be
for people
great,
to
yeah.
attend.
And do they have them recorded for people?
They are recorded, but I don't know that they're available except for those who've registered. That I don't know. But if something was interested in somebody, I could always send my link because they send them to me because I'm registered for them. So. But they have been great, heat pumps and various other topics,
Great.
moisture control, that sort of thing. So.
Okay, so let's, are there other than Brandy and the town staff, are there other things?
I must have missed the. What are we doing?
Well, I sent out a notice saying that whoever has them, they needed to follow the instructions on the email, which is essentially to not use them. But if you are currently using them and you've registered it with Emporia, so that they're listed in the app that you have, Emporia, and you let Emporia know, they will disable them directly and then send you a replacement of a new version. So it's a pretty good deal. Yeah, so it should actually tell you that on your, if you go onto your app, yeah, it'll tell you.
Right.
Any other things besides the sort of state of the town staff and our interactions with them, or things that are not on the agenda? Okay, let's do the approval of the minutes of August 17th, 2023. Are there any suggested corrections or additions? If not, is there a motion to approve?
I so move.
I second that.
All right, all those in favor of approving the minutes of August 17th as drafted by Rebecca, say aye.
I,
Aye. All right, that was everybody, so they are approved. So, old business updates from Brandy. So back into this mix of, what's happening with Brandy and our interactions with the town. So Jeff had hoped Brandy might be able to join us tonight and give us one last download on the smart meter, situation. It looks like Brandy's not going to make it. Jeff, though, has a meeting scheduled with Brandy to talk. I promoted two things as ones that I thought were where Brandy is like the key person, the key point of contact, and where we might want to continue to make progress in her absence. One of them was the smart meters. So who in the town staff can work with us on that? Could we start interacting with Dawn at Cal Water directly? Questions like that. And similarly for the climate action plan, Brandy was working on that with an intern. Is it possible for our committee to step in and actually do more of the work? And instead of having us be just a body to sort of review the work product of Brandy and the intern, to be more sanctioned by the town council to really drive the climate action plan. So that would mean we would be involved in discussing it, drafting it, and going to town council with it. Yes.
But I guess my impression, or what I thought I remember, was that was actually waiting on the town council's schedule. to
Correct.
Go in front of them. So like, actually the town council was the.
That is true. That is true. But that's true. Brandy's approach was to sort of take it to town council first, get them to sort of buy into the process, and then come back to us with a draft for comment. And I'm asking the question, well, maybe we should be the ones going to the town council. We should be the ones drafting it and finalizing with the town council, because
is the reason that it needs to go to the town council is that there's a budget associated with producing that document? Is that why it needs approval?
I thought it was more about, go ahead.
Well, yeah, I guess I thought it was more like all of these policies that we're potentially putting forward and what their input on that is.
Yeah, that was the logical and correct way to do things in the town in general, is to have the town council sanction the activity, be the first to review it, and then have it go out for subsequent review by, individuals, community, other committees. And given that Brandy's leaving, I wondered whether we might step in and play a more central role. So Jeff was going to inquire with the current town manager, and I don't know where that will come out, but it seemed like one where we could, we have the background collectively to do the work on that if they would let us. And I'm not sure whether they will or not.
Do we, is it not like very legal and stuff?
Well, it's technical, highly technical with, estimates of emissions and stuff. And, I think a
Right.
number of us have done that I've done that sort of thing in my work. And, I think together, I think we could do it, right? Whether
And I'm under the impression that Brandy, along with the intern, have been working on that particular part of
Correct.
it to collect all
correct.
those.
And we haven't seen that. So they need to sort of, if they want to make progress, sooner rather than later, they need to sort of release that content to somebody else and let them take the lead. And so that could be a new employee, but that person's going to take a while to get up to speed. And the topic of sustainability isn't going to be the top thing on their list. And so who knows how long it'll take. So I just thought,
My preference would be for the committee to at least see the draft before we even took it to town council, just to see what we're
Yeah,
dealing with.
yeah, exactly. So
See where the gaps are, what exactly the work
so-
entails. So
yeah.
I don't know, I
So-
mean, maybe we just need to go and get a real one that's been in some other town, that's already been approved by some other town or city, and at least see what we're talking about.
also get our hands on the work product of what
Yeah.
Brandy and the intern did, so that it isn't just lost. So,
Question?
Mhm.
I mean, we're not starting from scratch. We're not, there is a climate action plan.
There
We're
is
just
no
up-
climate action plan for Portola Valley.
There is not.
There is not. There are for other towns all over the place. We're sort of,
Ever?
we never had one. But there's a model, I think as Rebecca pointed out, there's a model among many other towns, and there are more towns that have it than don't, I think. And some of the smaller towns don't, and we don't.
Okay, so we could, review other towns similar, to us, maybe, a few like Los Altos Hills, maybe, or Woodside or something. And, okay,
Yeah.
Does Woodside have one?
I don't know.
I agree with you that we probably, amongst all of us, have enough technical expertise to do this.
And I would think if, that would be the highest point of leverage for us would be to help get that thing in place, right? In terms of, so I think that's the summary. So I'm, Jeff, because he couldn't come tonight, was suggesting that I talk to him tomorrow, which I'll do. Are there any questions or inputs to him from the committee that I could bring up tomorrow? Talk to him.
Is there a time? Are we under a time constraint? Like the housing thing, it has to be by January 1st. This is not, there is no, okay, fine.
No, it's been sort of out there as something that they wanted to get done for quite a long
Long time.
time. Yeah.
I mean, I guess you highlighted those two, but what about the other ones on the list, like on our agenda?
I just gave him two. I know, I mean, so that would be good input. So smart meters, how do we continue to advance that in Brandy's absence, and the climate action plan? I did ask, thought I asked Brandy about whether we could just interact with Green Waste ourselves to get the tour and stuff going. I think that would be reasonable.
Give us her contact, who we can call directly.
Yeah.
Because it's really hard to get a hold of anybody.
So maybe I need to ask Jeff to, well, he said he was going to meet with Brandy, but to include me in that so that I can ask about all these things. Who do we talk to? How can we follow up?
Give him a list.
Well,
Talking points.
yeah. So do you, all of the items on the list, do you think, or?
I think all of them. Right? I mean, we don't know the status of.
We should get the
Gonna wanna-
status for sure.
any-
You're gonna want to get to all of them eventually.
Yeah.
But some of these, I think, were like in most of it, true. Seems like she's been talking about them for a long time.
Right.
Well, I feel like, I mean, shouldn't it be policy and reasonable if you're gonna leave, then you kind of need to put together all this information and leave it, in an organized fashion so somebody can pick up, right?
That is reasonable.
And
She's already
Yes.
gone, as far as I know. right?
She is already gone.
There's a couple of weeks.
Her last day is passed because she's close by and it's sort of a sister community. There's a chance, there's still the ability to talk to her, but I don't know, whether I don't know, Jeff might be able to get to her, but I'm not sure how many people can get to her at this
presumably she
point.
had a, whatever they call that when employees leaving, exit
interview.
interview type of thing to hand over.
If Jeff didn't know.
I wonder,
Be
Did
like
we
a-
have
a
did we have
6-hour
town
interview,
manager
though.
at the time? Did we have a town manager when she was leaving?
it was right. Do you know, is she gonna be working on sustainability at Woodside? And I wonder,
don't.
oh, she's not.
No, I don't know.
Oh, okay, I mean, I guess I wonder if like some of these things could actually be joint.
That's a
between
great
Woodside and
question.
Portola Valley.
That's a really great question.
Yeah. I'm sure there's gonna be a lot of reinventing the wheel over there. And kind of vice versa. Yeah, yeah.
That's a
Yeah.
great question. Well, I'm going to suggest to Jeff that he have the meeting and that he include me so that I can, from our committee perspective, ask about all these things that we,
Yeah,
care
don't
about.
lose the institutional memory.
yeah, well, yeah, they've they've either done that in a reasonable way or not done it in a reasonable way. I don't know. Okay,
It seems like we should be doing more with them because the communities are so similar.
They want to, right? Their sustainability committee has approached us several times, right?
yeah, they did, and we
New sustainability.
we talked together about
Yeah.
sharing information but it's not like we're entwined in terms of, okay, now we're all together going to work on this thing. And if with Brandy there though, perhaps it could become that.
But like, like the library thing that we do, I mean, it's a great idea. They should do it at their library, and I'm sure they have some idea that we don't have. There should be, maybe, I think we discussed this before, like a liaison, somebody who goes to their meetings and somebody from them who comes to our meetings or whatever it is, or if they can attend remotely or,
Why don't we, okay,
this is just a way to get Brandy back. The liaison from them will be Brandy.
we'd like for them to assign
Yeah.
10% of her to us. Okay. Okay, well, this is really good. So any other things in the mix of what Brandy has focused on that we want to discuss? Okay, then let's move on to item B, review the ongoing efforts to put out these public service announcements. I think we have a couple that are in the works. And I guess we have one that's in the works. Leslie's is in the works, and Leslie has been slammed. I guess she had to go on. She went on a trip to Iceland to talk to them about glacier remediation, and I think she's just, sort of slammed with work. And she had to drive down to San Luis Obispo for a conference that's going to take place tomorrow. So are there other topics that we want to try to slot in before hers is finished?
Before when?
Well, so Leslie is writing one on some of the geoengineering approaches, right? The Arctic ice approach and also the marine cloud brightening, which was to be nominally for September, but I think we're gonna get through September without issuing that one, probably based on her how busy she is. So is there another one that we want to be writing and putting out?
Lovey, do you feel up to doing that thing about the water meter, your water meter experience, your smart water meter?
I'm thinking, okay. I never resolved where, I had my water meter replaced. I sat next to the kid who did it. And then went to the Ion Water site that they get the little card that they give you when they install a water meter. If you're not there, they hang it on your doorknob. And something happened. It was kind of flaky, but suddenly they tell me I've got a leak. I didn't have a leak, but I kept getting these notices from Ion Water that I had a leak for about 7 days. And I kept saying, look, I know I don't have a leak. And I made contact with a woman named Jenna. I can't give you her last name. But anyway, cut to the chase. It wasn't a smooth event.
Install.
It was glitched. And I'm not sure what the glitch was. I tried to figure out with the installer, and he was a young kid, just been hired to do this, very helpful, nice, but his experience was limited. We tried, he said maybe there was an air bubble. I don't know how these meters actually measure flow. That's something I needed to investigate, but that's when I went to Kona.
Probably a little spinning.
No, It's
No?
supposedly.
It's
there are no
digital,
moving
it's
parts.
digital now.
No moving parts?
No moving
It's
parts.
digital.
supposedly.
Yeah. The new meters are digital.
The Digital just means that the data is coming out in a digital manner. What's the sensor?
Yes,
though?
what's the sensor?
Mhm.
And I don't know. I haven't. dug into
You
that
know
yet.
that it's not a spinning gizmo? 'Cause the
Yes.
spinning
But-
giz-
But the kid did say something about an airlock, an airlock. That was it. Maybe there was an airlock,
Hmm.
but I don't know that he knew that. So that sort of, it died. That was in July, end of July. Yeah, because I left town for a couple weeks. And then when I got back, I had other problems. So I haven't pursued it. I'm going to. But now, as a sort of, I thought I could write up the experience, if you will. And I don't know how, if I'm going to go into the fact, I may allude to the fact that it wasn't it wasn't easy peasy. There was an issue and, it's on their end, they were adamant that I had a toilet leak. Okay. And I couldn't convince them otherwise. That seems to be the default.
But would they not come out and actually see? I mean, what did they expect you to do? Somebody, call somebody else to fix your leak?
So,
that you
yeah,
didn't
they
have?
just assumed I had a toilet leak. So that's
And
what
it just
was.
stopped? It stopped after a while or
No,
what?
but that's what the funny thing was. So for 7 days, I kept getting these ion water notifications. 24 hours later, of course, that's the issue. It's, the data is collected every 15 minutes, but you don't get it until the next day.
That's
but
not
I-
what's supposed to happen.
And then suddenly, I didn't have a leak. I did nothing different, changed nothing, but suddenly I didn't have a leak.
And they didn't come out and do anything?
They came out, the same young man came out, and that's when he said he couldn't see. He didn't go in my house and check my toilet, no. But he did look and see the numbers that were coming up on the dial were strange. I mean, it just kept, flipping around. And nothing was on. I turned everything off, and then, but he then went and found I don't know. It's one of those.
So he
things
released
that,
air, he released air from the system
you
or
know,
something?
see, I don't have an anti-siphon valve, but I have a 400-foot driveway and the house is up there and the meter's down here. So I didn't think, and he didn't think that, oops, I do have a shut-off valve to shut the water off going into the house. I have but I didn't think about shutting that one off. And so when he broke the pipes, when he opened up the valve, whoosh, 400 feet of water came running down and filled up the hole. It was an experience. So then we had to go to the highest point, let the air out of the line, but it's possible that, in fact, for a few days afterwards, I kept the faucets, certain faucets in different places would spit air.
Sputter, yeah.
So I think that's what caused the meter to be reading funny, but I couldn't convince Jenna. And I actually talked to one of the engineers, about this, by phone.
But did your bill show that you had been using water? Did your bill show that you had been using a lot of water?
Yes, but it wasn't a huge amount. It was like 10 gallons. That's the other thing is when I went to set up ion water, it wasn't there. I couldn't set it up. And I don't know why I went too soon or something.
Mhm. Yeah, it
And-
takes them at least a day to get into the system,
Yeah.
get you into the
there's a
system.
lag
yeah.
time
Mhm.
Because I went right after they put the meter in, I went
Yeah.
right up and, tried to set up.
Okay,
my
I want
account.
to, sorry,
Do it.
so is there a way to write up your experience that
Yeah.
would be helpful for people?
Yes, I think, okay, like I said, I think I can just say that, there could be glitches,
Mhm.
and things to look out for is like, make sure that if you have a shut off valve or if you have, some way while they're installing the meter to shut the water off, because they won't do it. He didn't do it. He just opened it up and the gush water fell in. And I only happened to be there. If I'd been away, I wouldn't have known anything. So, and a lot of people aren't there when they do this. So that's the other thing is if you know they're going, well,
You
to
don't
think
know when you're
about-
gonna be there, do you?
yeah, I mean,
I think
There are-
you're, is so
that
specific.
if you're not home.
They
and
tell
do
you that they're
this-
gonna be doing, when they're gonna be doing it?
No, sorry. I was just gonna comment. I think your situation is so unique and specific. I don't think it's that beneficial to. do the
Yeah,
public
that's what I would
service
worry is that
announcement.
it's just gonna be, oh, this is, people are gonna read the story and just say, this is, sounds like a disaster, you know?
Yeah.
And so we want to, which maybe it is a disaster.
What?
Your situation was a disaster, but if we're gonna write something out to TV Forum, it needs to be something that will inspire people, ultimately inspire people to use the meter and
monitor the eye on water.
their water use. And so I'm not sure how I derive that from what you just said.
Yeah, I know, it's just, you know, mine was a fluke maybe, I don't know. But, and actually this gentlewoman did indicate that somebody at the Eye on Water place did something weird. So it's like they're, okay, I guess the point is they're not smooth either. They don't have this situation without glitches on their end because they got a lot of new employees that they've hired.
No,
to
I
do
understand.
this.
I understand all
It
that.
seems
So-
to me that what would be useful is a little bit about the Eye on Water app and how to interpret the data.
Rebecca gave me a lot of hints on that, and I think that is where would be helpful for people. How to, because every morning I go to Eye on Water and, you know, see what, you know,
Well-
there's so much information.
I think that would be a really good thing.
Yeah.
That just telling that story. Every morning I go and check, I got my new water meter. They worked out the glitches.
Okay.
Every morning I go and I check my Eye on Water to see my water use and I can tell by every 15 minutes, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And we could put
to
some
do it.
screen, we could include some,
The glitch.
Well, no, you could say there were glitches.
Well, I guess the point is to let people know that if they're not going to be home and this can happen, that there could be, you know, there could be.
But many people don't know where their shut-off valve is anyway. I mean, people are just not gonna, they're not gonna be hands-on in the sense of, oh, I'll be sure I'm there when the meter's getting installed and I'm gonna turn off the house water because I don't want a bubble. It's just not gonna, that's not gonna be helpful.
but I think it might be helpful to tell people to run their faucets a little bit to let out air
Sure.
after a new meter's
Sure.
been installed.
To say something that it's possible that after you get your new meter, you may notice that, you know, one of faucets in different places, you know, spit out air.
And you may also get data that's flaky for up to a week, but the message could be hang in there. It's going to get to a point where it's useful, and that's why I check it every day.
No, the app is, you know, got tons and tons of information. You can play around with it. And that's something that people who aren't savvy, and I'm mildly, you know, I'm sort of in the middle ground. I'm not highly technical and I'm not a total novice. So, you know, I could be.
Yeah.
sort of-
I think just sharing what you look for and how you play around with it would be fantastic for people
okay,
to sit there and how they
I'll-
should monitor their water and their leaks.
You think we could put that out within a couple of weeks?
Couple weeks, probably,
Okay, if we could,
towards the end of a couple weeks.
yeah, toward the end of September. it's,
The
um,
well, September's almost over, early
it?
October.
Early October, okay. Is that right? Okay. Early
21st.
October. Okay, so yeah, if you could do that early October, I really think Leslie's might come out after that, so based on how busy she is.
Something that people have to request, or is this gonna be just rolled out to every home?
It's rolled out to every home,
And you get notified that.
supposedly.
Well, see, that's the interesting thing, is, you know, you don't get notified until they're there doing it. You know, it's not like, you might see trucks around, they do areas, they're doing Westridge right now. And, I just happened to be coming down my driveway and the truck was there and, I always go talk to these guys and they were gonna come up and put a, you know, a hang on thing
Yeah.
on your doorbell
Yeah.
saying, you know, we're changing your meter tonight, right, like that.
Now? Oh,
There was no,
all right.
you know, 2 days in advance, it's gonna happen, or no, it's, here it is, you're gonna do it.
Except
Which-
if you have a flume. Yeah, then you're not.
Yeah. You have a flume? Because I don't think they're doing people with flumes.
They're not
So if
supposed
you
to.
got a
yeah.
flume.
They're supposed to
Try it.
contact you, though. Did they contact you? You had one.
Yes, they, at one point they did, and then I think when I called, well, we had that whole confusing exchange. They thought it would work with it. They, and at one point they said there's no option. I don't know. I think it's tough.
But they didn't come and change out your meter that you're aware of.
No, I don't think they've, I don't think it's related to the flume. I just don't think they've done it.
On the street. Oh, okay.
Okay. Okay, so, so it sounds like we've got something for a couple weeks, 2 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks from now. We've got a water meter story from
Yeah.
Lovey, and then we'll have Leslie's after that. Okay. Should we move on? Let's move on to the library loaner program. So,
That was depressing.
yeah, that was, you want to summarize what we heard from
Let's see.
Garrett?
It's been a while since I read it, but he said, correct me if I'm wrong, if I'm remembering wrong. He said it was approved that we could buy a loan and loan it out through the library. However, they decided they only wanted to do 2 loaner programs at a time. So the other ones that we bought will go away somewhere, and only 2 will be displayed, and only those 2 can be checked out. So you can't request to check out something that's not one of those 2, which
Exactly.
is
So,
ridiculous. And,
yeah.
and really annoying and kind of depressing. If we're gonna go to all the trouble, I'm gonna write up this manual and just to have the unit sit in the closet somewhere for.
And
a
go
period of time,
old and become old.
old and get replaced by another unit. So I'm pretty discouraged about this.
Share with
And-
Woodside,
what's that?
Share it with
share with
Woodside.
Woodside.
Sure,
See if Woodside wants to do it. And
have them. buy.
but-
Same library system, so, I mean, it's a policy of the,
Oh,
San Mateo County Library System that they only wanted our library to have at most two things on display or accessible
Mhm.
for loaning at a given time.
That's the reason, is it related to the?
Yes, no. I think it's related to the concerns about equity among, you know, like, we've got it, Woodside's got it, but, you know, East Palo Alto doesn't have it. And so they're very sensitive to having uniformity in programs across all the libraries. And
So that decision came from like the county.
that
system?
came from the Garrett's boss, who's one of the managers in the San Mateo County Library System.
And Garrett's really
So it
good.
would apply, I would think, to Woodside also. Now, Woodside could have 2 loaners at a time, maybe, and maybe we could, if we had 3 items, we could have 2 here and 1 there, and, you know, and then anybody could drive from here over to there and borrow that one. So maybe it is an interesting way to get,
Interlibrary loan.
yeah, so, but it just, they wouldn't even accept a 3rd one so it's
So it's a
pretty-
new policy.
Now
though.
Garrett is leaving too, so it's not like he's leaving or has left and he's going to Alameda. Yeah, he's departing, so our contact at the library is leaving. So he may not, I don't know, who knows how hard he lobbied for us, you know.
So I wonder, is there any way we can set it up through some other group or some other location or through the town itself?
Yeah, I wondered about the town also.
Because you need a body there to, you know, physically hand somebody the unit, check it out, make sure that, you know,
Yeah.
somebody to kind of manage the whole.
Yeah, but how often do the units get checked out?
That's
Yeah,
what's annoying
so-
about it, you know, 2 at a time, because these things aren't, and
mean,
you
there-
never
there's
know what's
a-
gonna get desired.
There's like a lobby front desk thing, isn't there?
So, yeah, there's always somebody there, so why couldn't they just
They'll do
bring it out?
Is there
Yeah.
anybody left at the front desk? Isn't the front desk person who worked with us who left? Lori, was it you? I don't know. I
Well,
don't
they've
think
got
so.
somebody who comes out to the front desk when you ring the bell. But yeah, I think the library has had the benefit of them being on display. They're on display in the library, and I'm not sure we'd be able to take up space.
But
in
we
the
could have,
library
we could
to
have a poster board instead and
poster board.
send
They
people
also, there's a
over.
whole infrastructure to the website for loaning them out that belongs to the library. It doesn't belong to the town. So,
We could just have a piece of paper, like.
so
Have a Google
doubt
form.
if we'll get anywhere with that, really. I mean,
Because the town.
well, because the town is just maxed out. They don't have
Well, it doesn't
bandwidth.
hurt to ask.
Okay,
Question of space, I think.
Oh, you mean if the town does it? Yeah, where did they put it?
okay.
They have that
I'll
space up in the
I'll
attic,
ask.
but,
I'll ask.
and they have a dumbwaiter, so they can leave it upstairs and then send it.
The
item on
the
the
notion though
dumbwaiter.
of sticking with the library, and let's say we do have 3 items, the Lomi, the backup power, and the cooktop. And we just, two of them are on for a 6-month period, and then we swap in another one, and we swap in another one, and we advertise each of those times. I mean, is it? I don't know.
I
It's a
don't know. I
pain.
mean, it's just, it's totally random when somebody would want one of these 3 things and which one they'd
That's
want.
true.
It's like, it's not like you can say, oh, it makes most sense for January to April to have these
Yeah,
on.
that's true.
They're just,
That's true. And if somebody saw it and then all of a sudden was ready for it and it had been taken off the list.
What is the current status with the Lummi? I mean, we haven't
haven't
purchased
bought
it.
it.
No.
It almost, going back to what we were saying before about equity, it makes more sense to have these things in East Palo Alto than this town. Because in this town, if somebody wants something, they just go buy it, right? If they have a fleeting thought about a Lomi, they have someone go get them a
Unless
Lomi.
it's a grass weed whacker that we had to buy.
There you go. But you know what I mean? Like it almost, if the true goal is getting a higher number of people involved and committed in climate issues, then maybe it makes more sense to use
Kind
our
of.
resources to throw things in the library in East Palo Alto or whatever other city, because
but making a judgment on the ability of them, of folks in East Palo Alto to buy something eventually. Would they, if they like it, would they buy it? I mean, they
Sure.
can't loan it, they can't borrow it forever. They can borrow it for a
Sure,
month.
but it's educational.
Sure.
It's just raising awareness. It's a publicity stunt for
Yeah.
the environment,
Yeah.
But I think that's a thing that speaks to everything that we always talk about here, that so many people in this town, if they need something, they just do it themselves. And there's not a lot of seeking help and that kind of thing. Whereas in other communities, there's more need that, hey, I can't just go buy a Lomi. It's wonderful if it's available to me. And I can try and see what it's all about and let me learn something.
I still don't think.
Whereas
they'd be
somebody
able
else here
to.
probably owns Lomi, their neighbor owns the company and they can just talk to him or her, and it's just a different mindset.
I don't think we'd be able to get the town to apply its budget though to
Yeah.
purchases for another town.
Would
That's not
they-
gonna happen.
Who's in charge of deciding who can borrow? it? I mean, can they open it up to the whole county?
Yeah, great question.
Yeah, I think that was a question that Brandy thought was reasonable, that it be opened up to borrowers elsewhere and that we needed to have the town attorney and or town manager weigh in on that, because it's a policy, just policy choice. So
Well, I
think-
wonder if they'd change their mind on equity if we opened it up to the whole county.
no, it was not, Garrett told us that was not, that was
a
valuable,
no-one.
but not sufficient
I
to
see.
the concern they had.
Okay.
So do we want to, do we want to do the Lomi or do we want to just,
I'm depressed about it, so I guess, I mean, I could do it. It's just, what Garrett suggested that I write up kind of a instruction manual. The manual that comes, the little instruction manual is barely adequate. And so you kind of need it organized differently. And I don't know why he didn't really go through the instruction manual himself to make the decision, but he said, why don't you come up with a a binder of very simple to follow instructions. So I was gonna do that. And that's work that I haven't been able to find time to do. Which is a little depressing to do
I
all that and
agree.
have it been put in the closet for
Do-
4 months.
Do we have any information on how frequently the items that are there are being rented?
We
Or
had information
borrowed.
on the backup power unit, and it was, I think, over the course of a year, probably once a month.
not
The
bad.
induction cooktop, I don't know, and I mean, Garrett was able to run reports, but I think he's left.
If it was the kind of thing that there was like initial interest and
Right.
people borrowed it, but now tapered off, well, then maybe it makes sense to replace it with something else. But
Well,
if it's like
yeah.
ongoing, like once a
true.
month.
And I think I think it's dependent on us
Our advertising.
Yeah.
advertising
Yeah.
it because
Yeah.
it's
I mean-
totally not easy to find on their website. Because you don't just go through the regular looking for a book. It's literally a different location for the list. So
Okay, well,
I
Do you
couldn't
think
either,
that-
I had to ask.
Do you
them.
think the Valley Presbyterian Church would want to do the loaner program?
We have one. So
But what if, well, yeah, the town is not going to buy stuff to give to the church, so that's.
Well, they
not
wouldn't
gonna-
be giving it.
Anybody can borrow the one. Sure.
No, I know, but what about, I'm saying our backup power unit and such, could we make those available through the church? And I'm now thinking maybe not because church and state.
It's a community thing. And
You would just be storing it there and they'd be
I mean-
coordinating the.
Anne Haddon manages the cooktop. She keeps it at her house and then when somebody wants it,
Mhm.
I don't know how they contact her, they call, they email her and she signs it out and hands it, she could do that, or some, she didn't do that, but somebody, I could approach the church and see if they would mind. and we've
What
got
if we're,
point, like, we could have it at our houses.
yeah,
Have- yeah, we
exactly.
could
What if
have
we were to just copy
sustainability.
the San Mateo County website section that it has the loaners, and we'll just replicate that and have that, we'll run that, and that, the loaners will be at our houses.
That'd be
Mm.
fine. Like I said, Ann's is at her house, so yeah, I'd keep it. Yeah, I mean, they'd email us. We'd have on the website who to email, so borrow it and we know what to ask.
Do we want to do that?
Could you ask Jeff if that'd be okay? Is he the person? who gets
Well, if I
permission?
ask Jeff, he's going to want to talk to the town
Town
attorney, and
and the
it's
lawyer.
just going to go into this rat hole, but I mean, I'll do it. I'll do it, but it's going to go into a rat hole.
We'll ask
So-
about whether the town could just handle it and then
I
ask
think the
whether
town
we,
handling it would be better.
whether we could handle it.
I really, I mean, it's, one person a month renting, right? So it's not gonna be a big overhead.
Right.
Um,
Let me ask him whether the town could just take that on, and that we're not really happy with the library's perspective.
And I guess the issue is how do you manage the reservation system? When you want to reserve an item,
kind of just take it.
I used
Worthwhile.
I used to handle the Palo Alto Menlo Park Parents Club's notebooks for about all the childcare locations throughout the Bay Area, and I can tell, or throughout this peninsula, and I can tell you, it was all on paper back then. This is 30 years ago, 25, and it was a lot of work on
That's
paper.
harder.
Also, I mean, with the library system, it's all automated to remind you that you need to return it. And so is there a town staff person who's doing that? Or does the backup power end up in somebody's garage for 3 months, not being returned? Also, the waiver there's a legal waiver, which is a click-through thing that's part of the reservation process. So the town attorney is definitely going to want that to make sure that always happens. So I don't know. I'm not optimistic, but
Probably don't have any of that. If somebody sets their house on fire because the cooktop gets it, I guess that can't happen. But anyway, if anything happens to their house because they have a cooktop on.
they have
probably
signed.
the church- No, I don't think we have anything. We don't have any liability, right? But we should probably look into that.
You don't have a waiver?
Church, no, I don't
No.
think so. I don't call them.
Okay, so best option is for the town to do it. Is that true?
I think so, if we can see if they'll do it.
Is there a reason to try to put up a fight with the library system about two being ridiculous?
I don't know
mean,
who to fight with if
I don't
Garrett's
either.
going.
if we don't have a person here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or maybe he didn't tell the people who were there now, and they can just give him a third item and say, why don't you just put it here? And
The
we
new,
just-
the new person.
Yeah.
Actually, that's an
Oh, yeah,
interesting idea.
they already approved it.
They approved it. And here it is. Add it. I'll do a booklet then.
Okay, we'll try that too. We'll try that too. Okay, let's move on. Plans to develop a resource list. So there was a suggestion that so I sent out an email to the PV forum and there was zero response except from Ronnie
Yeah.
and Jay, two of our own
Right
committee
on the
members.
sustainability.
So the suggestion was that
Way to go,
we
buddy.
send out another such note. I haven't done that because I was depressed.
Press.
I
The
haven't
theme of
done-
the meeting.
What's that?
It's the theme of this meeting.
Well, and actually, so the very next item is the main item of the evening, which is this very question of how do we get engagement? So, and we want to have time for that. 49. So, the resource list. I wanted to ask a question. How poorly does it work to just do what the town is doing, which is people put out stuff on PV forum saying, hey, I'm thinking about putting in a heat pump, what do people recommend? And then there's all this dialogue that happens, and that includes us. So
Yeah.
are we really gonna, we put in a whole bunch of time to create a list of, here's your expert on heat pumps and, this kind of window and blah, blah, blah. Is it really gonna be that valuable relative to the sort of dialogue that is happening on PV forum?
I was thinking more, not so much, well, in addition to perhaps some expertise within the town itself, but just creating a resource list of people in the community, not just in Puerto Vallarta, but people who actually do this for a living or for, that's part of their job to, point people in those directions, because there are some, I actually went through a group, I forget off the top of my head what they're called, something like Zero Energy or something. They provide you with a lot of information. They give you this whole analysis of your house for free, and they'll connect you with contractors to do certain parts of your work. So just providing that resource to the town.
That's super valuable, but that's a different list. I mean, I think the list we were talking about was individuals who had personal experience as a homeowner doing X, Y, or Z that you could get in touch with and you go visit their house and see their heat pump or whatever. That's the piece that I'm wondering, how much better is that worth the effort, given how is it better than what's happening on PV forum already?
No.
I think,
Rebecca, how many people would you guess in the valley use the forum?
3,000. 3,000.
Out of
I-
5,000?
I mean, I think a lot of people might not want to send out a big blast onto the forum saying I'm thinking of doing this and asking for help, but if there was a resource, would go to that. But maybe as a way of testing this, maybe instead of trying to create the list, what if we just sent out on PV forum the question like, do you want to find out, or what do you want to find out about, or do you want to find out about these things? Would you like to be connected with a person that has experience replacing such and such items, and to see if there's actually demand rather than like trying to create.
I
this
see.
product.
Rather than creating the resource list, figure out whether there's a
If you
demand
send
for
that
it.
out and nobody replies, then maybe okay.
I see.
It sounds a little convoluted though. Because I mean, people who have questions, they do post it right to the PV forum. So
Some people do, but I mean, we don't see the ones that don't.
I think that it might be hard for people to know that they'd be interested in this until they have the issue that would make them be interested in it. I'm not interested, and then 6 months from now, I want a heat pump, and I'm like, oh, yeah, that would have been cool.
Yeah, but I mean, a lot of people may have been considering the track replacement for.
Yeah. But I think what maybe what you're alluding to, Scott, is I agree that there's some utility and there's some people are gonna be more interested in this kind of a private setting rather than making this public kind of thing. And however, I think the majority of people in town are on the forum. And I think probably the majority who would want to talk to somebody anyway would feel comfortable just posting on the forum. Not everybody, but I think probably the majority. So what's the difference? I think it's probably not that big.
And since we collectively have a lot of expertise on all those topics, not everything, but we probably could figure out, if somebody put in a request about windows, reflective films on windows. If one of us didn't have it, maybe one of us would try to figure out, okay, who do we know who might be able to answer that?
I mean, we might want to kind of consider it from a different angle. What if we wanted to in the future have a greenhouse tour where people would be willing to open their home if they have a heat pump or a heat pump hot water heater or window films or, that sort of thing. So it might be an idea to collect, the names of people who have those things installed, not so much to ask them to be an expert. Most people are not experts on the systems they have in their home, except for very few that are all excited about talking about it, but they might be willing to, to show their system to somebody.
That's how we came.
That was
Up
a
with the
big
suggestion.
piece of this idea for this list, and that was in the email. Would you be willing to talk to a neighbor and potentially show him or her what you've done with any one of the following long list of things? And there was zero response. So,
Because I think
What? Go ahead, sir.
No, I think it came up when we were talking about the October green or electrification, greenhouse tour. I
Mhm.
don't know what they call it. October 14th one. We said, and I remarked that last year's was really useful. Go
Yeah.
around to other
Yeah,
people's homes.
I
but
went
they were
around,
in
yeah.
Woodside and Los Altos and Palo Alto, and they were a little far. It was still worth doing, but we thought it'd be nice to have some local
Yeah.
Portola Valley houses do the same. But nobody in Portola Valley was able to be a part of the tour. And so then we thought, well, maybe if we could just have a resource list. But,
What if we just, it seems like I think the interest level, the responses to your email was low, thus the depression. And yeah, not non-existent. And I would imagine that there wouldn't be a massive response. You're not going to get 10 requests a day, for this. And so what if we just let the town know repeatedly, if you want to know about some sustainability issue, whether it's these, or if you want to see an example of this or talk to somebody, throw it out there, contact the committee, and we'll put you in touch with somebody.
well,
And
yeah.
I mean, in other words, like just roll out the survey. I don't know. I think they were saying, just roll out the survey. Say, hey, we have this list of people
Yeah.
that we'll talk to.
Yeah.
and then make up the list as we go along.
Yeah. Okay.
We'll keep
Okay.
the list. Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll see if anybody replies.
I can't tell you who's on the list, but it's very long.
If we're getting like an overwhelming deluge of, people.
Yeah.
That's great.
Then we could like.
That's
chat and
great.
request
Nobody
more.
knows that nobody responded. We could just say we've now.
Due to the
we've now
overwhelming
proposed-
response, overwhelmingly low, but overwhelming.
Overwhelming response, we've now been able to compose the list. So if you have any question about any of these topics,
We are currently experiencing a high call volume.
I like that. Okay,
Good idea.
pretend that it's all working. Yeah, no,
Right? It's like you make some garbage piece of clothing and then, but you sell it for $2,000 and
Uh-huh.
everybody wants it, right?
Make it till you make it, right?
okay, that's awesome. All right, I'm gonna work on an email that just rolls it out, and so I'll run that by you, Ronnie, and who else wants to be part of this? Jay and Ronnie. All right. That's a sub quorum, so let me do that. That sounds great. All right, that's very uplifting.
Mhm.
Okay, so now the last item remaining is really the one that I think Jay suggested last time, but how do we get people to care and be engaged about climate change and take action and make changes? I mean, what is, you know, big question. But that's the question. Let's give it some.
Deafening silence.
Yeah, we've got, it's 8 o'clock. So do people want to give this like a good 15, 20 minutes and then we'll adjourn? Is that reasonable?
Sure.
Okay, let's give it 20 minutes and let's just talk about it.
Let's just cry together.
Well,
cry together.
it seems that everybody discourages us from being doom and gloom, despite the fact that the situation is pretty bad, is extremely bad. So I don't know. I mean, obviously wildfire makes a huge impact on people in this town. I don't know if we go from that angle. I don't know.
Can I just ask out of curiosity, how long has this sustainability committee been going? And what has it done over that?
The original sustainability committee was going for a really long time.
It was about drought, wasn't about water.
No,
Drought.
and then they started a new committee called Water, I forget exactly what it was called, but there was a water committee, and that was you, Lovey, me, Judy, Murphy, Al Sill, and that was extreme. We were really pretty active. That I joined that not at the very beginning, but that was Mike, I forget his last name. So that was very active. That put on the water fair, that, you know, which was really well attended at the time. And then at some point, the original sustainability committee just sort of fell apart and kind of disappeared. And then they made the decision when the water thing was started during the drought in 2013, I think. So we were handling all the drought issues, giving resources and helping people with their meters and that sort of how to read it and how to read the old version, the website for Cal Water, and coordinating with Cal Water to find out what people's water usage, you know, what in general the water usage patterns were in Portola Valley. And that started the whole smart meter, water meter thing going. That it did really take 7 years.
So was it, I mean, some of that I guess is working with, well, like those companies that you mentioned, but was there also a lot of engagement with the town? I guess?
With the residents?
Yeah.
Well, we put on the drought fair, and then we put on another thing with water. I forget what it was. So there were a couple, and they were really quite well attended.
Really active. And the guy up in Los Trancos.
Yeah, Mike, I forget it. What I'm blanking on his last name. Michael Ward or Ward. Yeah, Michael Ward. So yeah, that was quite active. I think 2 or 3 times we had a big thing with the back of the
Lots of,
picnics at the,
Giveaway.
yeah, and all sorts of things. So yeah, it was pretty active. People
It's-
were pretty motivated because they were getting penalized for the droughts. You remember that when you had to really cut back 30% on your water use, and you were getting fined. You know, it was showing up in your water bill every month if you went over. So people were motivated because of that. And then at some point, the sustainability became important. I forget why. And so they just made the decision to merge the committee because we were active, but they wanted us to also take on sustainability issues. So we became CERC, Sustainability and Environmental Resources Committee. And then we had quite a few people for a while there. And that was back in the day before the pandemic when people were actually showing up to the picnics and the town fair and all that stuff. And then it started dribbling off. And then we hit the pandemic. We became sustainability. We sort of dropped all the extra acronyms. And, you know, once sort of, even before the pandemic, everything started kind of falling off. And then the pandemic, of course, blew everything up. And then, I don't know, here we are not participating in the town fair because the last times we did participate, literally 15 people came by and they were all preaching to the choir. So we weren't converting anybody. Nobody was interested.
But
So
in terms of like our committee's strategy, you know, whatever the strategies we're using, or, you know, how is it different? Is it just a different time and a different receptivity of people today relative to when you were doing it? Or is it a different level of action on the part of the committee relative to then? Or what's different?
well, from the water and drought perspective, there was obviously, it was in the news all the time. It was impacting people because they couldn't water their lawns, they couldn't water their plants. They had, they were really restrictive, about everything. So people, it was kind of in people's spirits all the time because the lawns were all going brown and the plants were problematic. So people knew it and they wanted resources for how to deal with it, how to find their leaks, how to whatever, how to change, how to change out their lawn to a landscape, how to do a gray water system. So we put out the whole new that gray water booklet
Yeah.
about, updated that for Portola Valley. So then sustainability just doesn't, climate change just doesn't seem to have the same impact, even though it's sort of more.
The bill that you're,
Too diffuse. There's too many aspects to it, I mean, there isn't too many, but compared to saving water, which is,
One
an easy
item, yeah.
Focus. But sustainability has so many aspects to it that it's hard to,
And I think people think that,
find a program that grabs people like, because everybody sees it differently.
and I also feel that people don't think that their actions will have much impact
Yeah,
on
exactly.
the greater, issue of
Yeah.
greenhouse gases and climate change.
Some of the actions, are much more expensive than
Mhm.
saving water, putting a roof on or getting a heat pump or something. Those are big ticket items for a lot of people.
I think there's a lot of cognitive dissonance as well, that if you, look at we talked about the statistic about, billionaires and what a billionaire's climate impact is compared to an average income person. And the affluence of the town contributes to a lifestyle that is far and above. And so then if we start talking about climate change, then there has to be some admission that for many people in the town, maybe the way I'm living my life is not so responsible. I use implants in surgery, and there's this new company that is making these implants that are sustainably made. And they contacted me because this is what I do in my field. And they said, you want to try our stuff? And I said, sure. And they're based in Maryland. And I said, well, usually when you do surgery with implants, you have a rep from the company in the room while you're putting the stuff in. And I said, well, what are you going to do as far as a rep? Because you're a small company. And they said, oh, we would just fly out for each of your surgeries. And I think, and that's the mentality of
Uh-huh.
lots of people, unfortunately.
So if there were a carbon tax and it was heavy carbon tax and or electric bills went up tenfold
Which
because
they are going to.
Going to.
then we might get, that would be
They have
Um,
gone up. I don't know if
have
you've looked
gone
at your,
up, but-
your electricity and gas bills. They've doubled, literally, in just a few years. And I was looking at it lately and it was,
doesn't help to
Untapped.
make the case for
well, their gas has gone up even worse. So, and that has no end.
but
I-
I'm sorry, I'm just trying to make an equivalency. The equivalency to the drought water issue when people started to take it really personally was hitting their pocketbooks hard. And right now, energy costs are such that it, particularly in this community, it doesn't hit their pocketbooks
Mhm.
hard. Or they're not being told you can't do that. I mean, if you're told you can't use more water than this amount, or you get a big fine, then
I think that somebody, I lost my train of thought. Though somebody mentioned that, the idea that people think that individual actions aren't going to do anything. And of course, many people believe that. And the criticism is that, oh, we should be, legislation is what's going to change things. So maybe the biggest contribution we can make is the part of our charter that says advising the committee, the town council, rather, on
regulations.
yeah, that's probably the biggest change we could make, because, I've been on this committee, I don't know, 2 years, and we've talked about this a handful of times about how to get people engaged, and had lots of programs that are great, and most of those programs are preaching to the choir. The only people who come at 7 o'clock on a Thursday are, people who are already at least, 7 out of 10 interested. So I wonder if the regulation is the biggest change that we can make.
Well, certainly requiring electrification for new builds would have an impact. Eliminating lawns from, from home, new homes.
I mean, how is the climate action plan?
Yeah, I would think the climate action plan would be the guiding document that would, inform regulations, could inform regulations going forward. So,
Well, it would certainly help tell us where all the usage is, right? Or it should, I don't know. And that might give us a better sense of what we need to target. But it's not easy. I mean, I was going to write up eventually my experience with the whole heat pump and going electric, and it's not obvious at all. I mean, my water heater's gone out. It's been out for 2 months, and of course, my family's getting really irritated with me. But
so you have no hot water?
not in the main house, but I do have hot water down in the pool house. So we glamp. We go glamping whenever we want to shower or to walk down the hill. So a lot of complaints, but it's manageable in my mind. But my husband's like, well, the cost to replace that gas water heater with another one is $5,000. The cost to put in a heat pump is, because of the size of the house, is $25,000, and that would not,
For a water heater?
for a heat pump to handle the heat. See the complications. Of
Oh,
my
yeah,
hot-
yeah, yeah. You
I have
have
the
your
complications
issue,
that my
yeah.
hot water heater also provides my heat to the house through the radiant system. So that's why it's so complex for me. But if someone wanted to go just to had a hot water heater and they wanted a new one, then it would probably be $8,000, and maybe the rebates would bring it down a little bit, and then they
Fine.
would have an ROI.
Mine was 4 with a rebate.
Oh, okay.
If we didn't get a big one, we got a 50-gallon.
After your rebate.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's sort of comparable then in that case. But if you want to go to a heat pump because your furnace you want to get rid of your gas furnace, then, it's a substantial amount of money. Regardless, and that's, so it's not obvious, I'm looking at quotes that go up as much as 40 grand if I want AC, which would be nice, but it's less of a priority now. So, and the rebates, they're going away, some of them. PCE's rebates, I just found out, as of October 1st, they're dropping by $1,000. So they're going from 3,500 to 2,500. And you're just like, how many people have even taken advantage of this? How many people even know about the possible rebates, and you're already getting rid of them? I mean, it's absurd. So yeah, it's not easy. If you don't have the money to plunk down 25,000, which most people don't outside of this town, it's going to be a struggle to get people to switch over.
It's interesting. I think of this like, there should be a mobilization like World War II, right? That's the level of urgency, and everyone should be on board like that. And I remember watching some documentary, I forget what it was, where, we have this image where everyone was on board and everyone was okay with meatless Mondays. And so many people were not. And I remember, and it just like people protesting having to wear a mask in the 1918 flu. There were people who complained about it back then. We have this image that, back then everyone was on board, but they weren't. And even something like World War II, where we have this idealized
Victory gardens,
like
bonds, war
many
bonds.
people weren't. And so if you couldn't be on board with that, I think it's gonna be pretty tough with this when it's, we as human beings are programmed not to really care about things that aren't right in front of us.
Yeah, which is why regulations kind of force people to have to think about it. But there was so much pushback. I mean, think about all these old timers that were pissing and moaning about the idea they might have to lose their gas furnace when they just hadn't bothered to read the regulation and that it didn't apply to them. So like,
This could be another good thing to talk to Woodside about, or any other town, because I'm sure most towns who have a committee like this have a committee of people who really care about this issue by definition. and have a town full of people who don't, just based on statistics. And I wonder how other
Yeah.
towns deal with this in terms of engagement and staying motivated.
Well, other towns are actually far ahead of us. They've gone all electric for all construction as of a certain.
Who's
date.
done that?
Ones.
Palo Alto, San Jose,
Have we not done it? I mean, what are we missing?
And the town council can decide that?
yeah.
Palo Alto does not allow gas appliances at all for
But-
new construction.
New construction, no. No, remember there was that big stink with that restaurant.
That's
in-
true, yeah.
that they had already put in a gas line and it had already been approved and then the law's in place now and they said, nope, you can't have it. And then they made a
Well,
stink.
then they cut
So
it.
if we,
I don't think we're completely there yet, to be honest.
has someone proposed that and it been shot down by the,
There's a lot of complaints, especially from like real estate agents.
So we passed, I mean, we passed something that was, it's not that very system.
Mhm. Yeah, but I think it's more related to
I thought it was that if you,
changing out,
yeah, if
changing
you,
out in the future.
if you
not
were
just
doing
new
certain things, you had to
construction.
put in the infrastructure to allow you to like put in a heat pump water heater. You had to put the electrical circuits in place.
There is that, but I mean for new.
Not just new. I think it's more for just replacements at that point.
But we
Okay,
should,
but I'm saying if someone builds a new house in Pacola Valley today, I think it needs to be.
I'm not convinced.
I mean, maybe not. Maybe
I don't know if
there's
the kitchen
exceptions
has
for,
to
like,
be.
some outdoor Stuff maybe pool and.
I don't know. We have, we
well,
probably
yeah,
should look
so
it
we
up.
need to,
but-
yeah, we should. All right. Ronnie, are you gonna check that?
Okay, yeah.
Okay, and report back to us next time?
Yeah, because there is.
I think we can also, I mean, depends on your comfort level, but I'm happy to be a squeaky wheel. You know, if there's somebody in a committee who, and I don't really know anybody on the committee, but if there's somebody who says this isn't important, or on the town council rather, who says this isn't important and I'm not going to vote for this, I'm happy to call that. I mean, you want to be amicable, but at some point, you know, I equate this stuff to however many decades or centuries ago, a certain kind of language was acceptable to many people that we would never find acceptable today because we know it's harmful and it's incorrect. And people say things today about groups of people and various other topics that is not acceptable. And if you hear someone say that, you call them out on it if you're a courageous person. And if someone says these things aren't important, someone should stand up and call them out about it because it's scientifically inaccurate and it's dangerous. Just the way that if people use certain terms about a group of people, we should stand up and say that's not okay. And I think at some point, you know, we're sitting here twiddling our thumbs. You know, if the town has an opportunity to do something and chooses not to do it, then somebody's got to say that's not okay.
I think that in some of the past started on if anything fairly proactive about
No.
being sustainable, and there's been pushback.
The original.
But doesn't the council have the vote?
Yeah, and I think they voted to go ahead.
Or they tempered it though. Some cases, I think things were tempered. They didn't reach quite so far to reach code.
Maybe if we did. I mean, to the extent, if we all agree that regulation is one of the key levers that we could influence, we have been doing that to a degree,
Working with Brandy, but we could do it potentially more. Do we need to be reading, you know, really reading the town, the relevant codes for the town and make sure we understand it and understand where it seems to us to be weak.
Well, we talked about that before, about the whole building science sort of thing. I mean, if I were in charge, I would require everybody who built a house or who did a major remodel to add 2 inches of rigid insulation to the outside of their home and air seal it. And then, you know, have somebody, you know, examine whether or not they had thermal bridges in their home and, you know, increase the R values for their roof assembly. I mean, that's the sort of thing that would have a pretty big impact on their energy usage. you know, so,
That's the place I think that we could have an effect is in doing the research and then presenting it to the council and the town to be put into regulation so that when people do remodel or build, they're going to, do it. This sort of trying to grab people just helter-skelter around here and get them to change. It's not going to make a significant impact. I think if you make a regulation that, like Rebecca said, you have to have a certain R value, and with new materials, new building materials and stuff coming in, and appliances and things, if that's written into a code, into the building code, I think that's where we could have the biggest impact. If it's, if that's what you're trying to do is make an impact, I think that would be the place to do it.
and it doesn't have to be all stick. I mean, it could be carrot too. I mean, in my mind, if we required people to add 2 inches to the exterior of their home with rigid insulation, we would give them those 2 inches, that linear 2 inches of square footage for free. It wouldn't count towards their AMFA, for example. That would be even more encouragement because, instead of having to deal with losing 2 more inches from your inside, to the outside, yeah. So,
Having fairs and giving people information, you get the same people all the time, the 10 people. Yeah, you don't make an impact like, you'd like to, unfortunately. But if the building code requires you to have a certain thing, then there's where the impact is.
Okay, well, it is 8:20. I guess it would be great if people could propose some topics for next time that would sort of go the next step in what we've been discussing. And
Review the climate action plan. That's a topic.
okay,
And that'll make
We
us
don't have
better.
access. to it.
I would really like to see what.
all right, we need to get a copy. All right,
well, somebody could get at least a copy of another town's one and just send it around, copy it to us.
Find one for you.
Find one,
Yeah.
yeah.
okay,
Well,
well,
get an answer from Brandy if there is,
A
is there
draft
something-
or
I don't know
something.
what's been drafted so far.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but we ought to have
The
a copy.
model, the
Whatever's been
template.
drafted, we ought to have a copy of it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Otherwise, we're gonna lose all that.
Okay, that's a good one. What else? Are we gonna,
You're going to review the stuff with Jeff Alfs about
that's true.
Randy's responsibilities.
I am
Green waste,
green waste.
my pet project.
Yes. I guess I was thinking with
The,
regard,
yeah, I've drafted a letter to respond to the Harold and Jan of their complaints about compost and green waste. I'm still I'm probably should have my husband read it.
What were they complaining?
Harold was complaining that, I think his name's Harold, was complaining that during the green waste junk, what is it called? The garbage day, cleanup day, that green waste required you to put all your sticks and whatnot in either in a
Yeah, in a bundle.
or
yeah.
somehow, and that bent him out of shape. So, and Jan agreed with that. So, and then they both complained about styrofoam, that the churches had to do that and the town wasn't doing it and green waste wasn't doing it and whatever. So I was just going to reply with exactly what's going on of, what their options were. The fire department comes by and will mulch your big, long branches for you twice a year, whatever. So it just had the list of all the options that they have. They can put their styrofoam in the garbage.
Well, yeah, save it for,
Yeah, or save it for the church, but yeah. I mean, if they really, they don't know what to do with it. And then finally, that was like, well, you can buy less items that require styrofoam. and, you know, encourage your retailer to use a non-styrofoam version of whatever packing. So, you know, maybe it was a little facetious, but I'll have my husband. do it.
So, that's all, those are all, it's all good. Yes, we'll do those things. I guess I was asking, is there any follow-on to this discussion about the importance of having an impact on regulations? And in particular, our own understanding of what the current regulations are, our development of a critique of those.
Yeah,
based-
originally we were going to have someone come speak to us, right? That was one of the things we had talked to Brandy about, having an expert
Right.
come and answer questions about that, right?
I'd also love to know the nuts and bolts. How much what is the format in which we can make recommendations? How often could they be adopted?
I can tell you
know,
that.
Okay, great.
Because I talked to Laura Russell about that. So typically what happens is if the sustainability committee wants to change some regulations, we have to go to town council and get their permission to consider that issue. Then the issue goes to the planning department where they then explore the issue. And so that the town has to provide the budget for that. That's part of what it is. So then they explore that issue. They bring it back to us and to town council to talk about it. And then if it then moves forward and if town council thinks if the planning commission, planning department and the town think it is something that's useful, we're allowed to make 4 changes to the general plan per year. And that's not individual changes. That's sort of, you know, like the
all
whole,
changes that you
all-
would-
like at a particular time. So some cities actually make 4 times a year, they update their general plan with something new. You know, with
Maybe that should be what we do.
so already, you know, the housing element's changing, the safety element's changing. So that might be 2 changes right there, depending, yeah, on the timing. So I asked a little bit Laura about at the time about when I asked this question about what the feasibility is of us changing something like the cool roof and the cool walls idea or in light reflectivity or the you know, whatever. And she's like, you know, certainly it's something we could think about, but she didn't perceive it as something that could be happen anytime in the near future because of the whole
Because of other
housing
priorities.
element and the safety element had priority on their time completely. So we're talking about something for next year, but that doesn't mean we can't. I mean, that's how long it would take anyway to get like new regulations. If we were to put a basket of new regs together, it would be something that for sure would be a year from now, but that's how long it would take anyway for us to kind of develop it.
But then a few months later, we put another basket together and then eventually a year or 2 from now, a few results and then a month, few months and then a few results.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
And it's just have to keep our things up for 2 years.
Mhm. Yes.
Yes, so what is the next piece of work for us to do as a committee toward figuring out what that,
What's there
I
now.
think one of the questions that you
Uh,
have for Brandy or for Jeff to ask Brandy is what were the reach codes that we weren't able to adopt that what were the reach codes that got pushed back?
Well, what's there now and what did you
I
try to
just-
do?
I just double checked and, I mean, the town council did pass that all new construction in Portola Valley is all electric.
Mhm.
And it's in our meeting notes from October and November, where Brandy, last year, Brandy reported back to us on what the council passed. But we can also go to the source, but I mean, it is, and
But I think what's missing is the town is for
it includes 50%.
right, but for just in the terms of replacing things, like not being able to replace with gas. But that is not in our regs at all.
If you're just replacing in pipes. But there's like, whatever it is, California, that is no longer, so that's.
Right, yeah. The Air Resources Board, that isn't even just California. I mean, the Air Resources Board of California is not going to allow anything, I think, as of 2026. So, you know, that's
Right.
not that far away from now. So people need to be prepared for that.
okay,
So
Yeah.
we have a lot.
we have a lot. Okay, good. Is there a motion to adjourn? All those in favor of adjourning?
Aye.
Okay.
Anybody running tomorrow?